Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. Got a great show. Have our expert back to talk about Erika Jayne, Kimberly Archie. We're going to cover the explosive episode this week with the tears of black mascara coming down her face and so much more, all the different lawsuits and what that means. But first, let me just cover a couple topics. Okay, Britney Spears, you guys, a lot going on there. She got to speak on July 14th, in which she basically said, I will not perform anymore on any stage. And she also included this in some of her Instagram posts. As long as my dad is in charge, I'm not going to put on makeup. I'm not going to perform on a Vegas stage. And she also said, it was fine, but I don't need to go there and have contact with people where I get a contact high from weed and meet all these people and sweat and work and all this stuff and still not be able to go to the spa, still not be allowed to go to the spa. I'm done working like that, and I've done it for 13 years. So the only kind of dancing you're going to see is what I do on this Instagram, and I don't like the criticism. So either enjoy me spinning around or don't say anything at all. So we always, so we're getting some answers about this Instagram. I believe CrowdSurf is still in charge, but I have some sources that I'm getting information from. One being the confusion of her post last week, where it was a post of she and her boyfriend Sam, and they looked really cute, like they were on a hike. And she said, doesn't he look like such a daddy? And he liked it. Then people realized that was a photo that Sam used for around February 14th. So they thought that was the powers that be that put this out. And by Sam liking it, is Sam part of this Instagram? No. What it means is she liked that photo too. So she actually posted that because she liked the photo of the two of them together. And then he liked her photo. It's a lot to cover, but she is speaking out. Even though Judge Penny said that she was not going to remove Jamie, her dad, from the conservatorship, she did say you can finally hire your own attorney. And the attorney that she got was this guy, Matthew Rosengart. And interestingly enough, I heard that he at one time represented Sean Penn. So some people believe maybe this connection came because Madonna is now getting involved in helping Britney Spears. We've also heard from Christina Aguilera, and Cher's been very vocal about it. So that's very good. She did say great things about her fans, but she also said the things in these documentaries highlighting these parts of her life that are humiliating to her, how they highlight, her getting upset, shaving her head, hitting the car with the umbrella. We know now how much the media played a part in making us aware of the fact that she was struggling. I mean, she gets called, they call the ambulance because at one point she had, gotten to a bathroom with her child, and that made them nervous, and she was having a psychotic break, along with everything else that was going on, a divorce, probably postpartum, being that she had her two children close together, and just being a child star in general and having the whole world watch her. Literally, I saw this somewhere. The cameras, the TMZ cameras or whatever they were, the news cameras, were inside the actual ambulance of where they were evaluating her before they drove off. We saw that at home. I mean, if that isn't a violation, and if that didn't probably have something to do with the conservatorship being granted 13 years ago, but then to think that she just continued this way is just really shocking. So she also said, I will not do any more work until my father leaves. I will never sing or dance until my father is not part of this. And then she also brought up her sister. Now, the sister thing is super interesting. Jamie Lynn is her younger sister. We first saw Jamie Lynn when she was about 9, and Britney was 18 years old. As we know, the mom and dad then also managed Jamie Lynn's career, and she was on the show called Zoe 101. She got pregnant. I guess she's continually somewhat worked. I don't really know what else she's done. But she brought up her sister, and she goes, and I did not appreciate my other family's lack of support, family members' lack of support. And I didn't enjoy my sister performing my songs to remixes at award shows. So I looked it up. It was from 2017, I think. Maybe it was further back than that. But Britney looked great. She was getting some Disney award, the first annual Icon Award. And she's sitting with her two boys. And they go, now we have a surprise for you. We have these 3 stars and a surprise star. And it starts out one girl singing, a hit, another girl singing a Britney hit, but they're doing it like almost like American Idol where they kind of change the song, like hit me baby one more time. And you're like, can we just hear it the way Britney did it? Okay. So then the final person is her sister, Jamie Spears, comes out, sings the song. She's got all this blonde hair on her, and her mom, and she gets up and it looks like Britney's surprised and she's cheering for her sister. And the sister cannot dance and I don't even know if it's her singing the words or not, or if it's lip synced, but what a surprise. Oh, isn't that great? And of course she's next to her mom, who's thrilled to see her other child up there performing. But it is weird. And it's very much Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in like a twist. That is the best movie ever. Look it up. It's a black and white film with Betty Davis and I believe, is it Anne Bancroft? I'm not exactly sure who was in it, but it's Betty Davis. And it is about 2 sisters, and one of the sisters becomes a very big movie star, and the other one was a child star but never really made it past that. And Betty Davis then runs over her sister at a party, and now the big star is a invalid in the sense that she's can't get out of her room because she's in a wheelchair, and the crazy sister's keeping her, is her captor. Her, she's the girl, she's Kathy Bates in Misery. And it just kind of reminded me of that. Like, here's, Jamie Spears kind of, I don't know how much she says, Jamie Lynn Spears says, I have nothing to do with my sister's conservatorship. I don't benefit whether it stays or whether it doesn't. However, she has said some things that I think she's throwing out things to make us believe that Britney still is not mentally stable enough not to have the conservatorship. She just said, I'm here, I'm strong, I'm stable. I think the word stable is like an FU to Britney. And then, of course, right after the first time Britney spoke, she said, I don't care what my sister does. I don't care if she goes to the rainforest and has a bunch of babies. I don't care if she does this other crazy thing. She can go to the moon if she wants. Well, that's not what Britney was saying. She was saying she would just like to have the freedom to drive her car, make her own music, create her own songs, and have a child when she's already been proven that she has 2 kids and they're doing very well. So there is a lot of history and weirdness between Britney and Jamie Lynn, her younger sister. I don't know where the brother Ryan comes in. I know at one point he was working for Jamie, the dad, under the Britney Spears business, and he was making $200,000. I don't know where he is in this today. But it's all good, and she's going to speak again on June 23rd. Oh, however, when she shaved her head, remember that was so shocking that she stopped at a place and just shaved her head. Well, Willow Smith just shaved her head, and it's just being received as strength, strong. You're a strong human, and letting that freedom go of your hair. And then her mom is going to shave her head too. I don't know if the grandma's going to shave her head. I don't know what Red Table episode it's going to be about shaving your head, but what a difference 13 years makes when a woman shaves her head and how it's perceived, right? So I just wanted to bring up that point. Okay, now let me talk about a little update on the worst mother on earth, Lori Vallow. So as the case is coming for her being charged for the murder of her daughter and son, these emails are coming out just proving the fact that she was well aware that her child was now dead and that she was setting a stage to try to get out of town and have it not be found out. The email to JJ's school is the last day that he was seen, the last day he was photographed. It was that day that she said, I got a job. I have to leave immediately. Please, close out his paperwork. He'll no longer be going to the school. I have to go right away because I need this job since my husband just was killed by my brother out of self-defense. I have to take this job opportunity. So there's all this stuff coming out. Another email came through from the husband that was eventually killed by her brother, who's also dead, saying, pleading with her, trying to go, what's going on with you? You took this money out of my account. Anyway, it's all coming out. Very disturbing last photos. Oh, also in the last photos, because I guess they got the camera of her brother Alex, who was also found dead of what appears to be like a stroke or a heart attack. And they believe that he definitely had something to do with killing of both JJ and her daughter. And in his phone, I guess, along with the last photo of JJ, was ammunition, like a photograph of just bullets in like a box. So I don't know if what the autopsy showed, if in fact I don't remember if they know the way they were killed yet, but that was disturbing that he had that. But also he did shoot the husband, Charles, with a gun. So maybe that had something to do with that case as well. I mean, they have so many cases to cover. Okay, for a fun note, Real House of Potomac, 2nd episode, season 6 is in. And what I do like about this is that these women would all hang out together. They are funny, but they are awful to each other. But they don't seem to be really hurt by them being awful to each other. It's just sort of expected. I don't know if they're in on it together or what. But they get together, and Karen, who's the grand dame, she's married to this guy, Ray. They've been married 25 years. Of course, they're going to renew their vows or do something like that. And nobody believes she sleeps with Ray, and they're all big about wondering what's going on in their bedroom. And she says to Giselle, I'm very upset with you about what you said about Ray. She's like, what did I say? She's like, when Ray sat you down to say you better find a man because your looks are fading, you said something very disturbing in your interview after. And they cut to Giselle saying, he'll be in the ground dead before these looks fade. Okay. I mean, he's saying her looks are fading because she's old, and the only way she's going to get a man is through her beauty. So she better snatch him before that fades. And she's like, hey, old fart, you'll probably be dead before I stop looking good. So I was like, are we not talking about what a rude, misogynistic thing it was for Ray to say that about Giselle? Robin is working hard. Robin and Giselle are best friends, but Robin went to visit her house, and she did say it looks like a house attached to a house because she added on this other house that's 2 stories, but she just kind of like stuck it up like you would a Lego. And I'm like, ooh, Giselle's not going to like that when Robin says that, because at one point, Giselle might want to sell that house, and now she's put it out there to the world that she thinks it looks really weird from the outside. Also, Robin's storyline is that she's kind of lazy and isn't waking up on time. And we see next week that she allows the cameras to come into her bedroom where she's laying there, and the husband's like, you need to get up. Juan's like, you need to get up and do something. And she's like, but I'm tired. Okay. This is where you're like, we got it. This is your storyline. You're giving this to the producers, because anybody else would go, okay, so Robin, we're going to be at the house on 10 o'clock on Tuesday. And you're like, okay, so I usually sleep till 11, so I'll just be in bed while you guys put the mic on me and then come in, and then I'll just ask like I'm a lazy person, since that's my storyline, and people are either going to side with me or think that Juan Dixon is a dick. There's a new girl named Mia. She's the 4th wife of a pretty good-looking older man. They have a couple kids together. It got revealed that besides all her plastic surgery, she met him when she was a bartender at a strip club. Someone's like, well, you're probably a stripper. I mean, who cares? She also said they had sex at a Waffle House bathroom. So clearly this chick I like that she's honest. She's like, yeah, I worked at a strip club. Yeah, I'm the 4th wife. Oh, they own these joint chiropractic like franchises for chiropractors. So I'm hoping to get some good cracking videos out of that. And then also, she's really honest about all her plastic surgery. And I want to say, I believe that Wendy, who was the most accomplished with her 4 degrees, is, I think, the one that will get the award for most changed once being on Real Housewives. She's gotten a bunch of plastic surgery. She no longer wants to be a professor. Instead, she's going to sell candles. No joke. Yesterday's episode, besides presenting the fact that she had her boobs and her stomach and her butt done, she is now starting her own candle line. I mean, I have joked about candles being a housewife's, endeavor. And at one point, Megan King Edmonds did it for like a minute, and I went to that party, but then she left the show. And Tiffany Moon, that's one of her businesses. She gave me some candles. They're nice. But this really, she's ready to like end it all to do these candles. So it's just kind of like slow your roll, girl. And she's getting in fights with people, and she's not acting like the intelligent woman that we'd see like in all these like political correspondent roles. And meanwhile, Ashley, she's she's pregnant with the second kid, not double pregnant. And she has to tell her mom that she has to give her husband blowjobs all the time so that he doesn't cheat on her while she's 9 months pregnant and with a toddler at home. And he's like 60 and not cute and cheated on her twice before, which we caught on the show. Lastly, Candace is there, and she's a stepmom to her, husband's kids. And now he's going to manage her career. And that seems like that'll be some juicy stuff where he's like, I don't know anything about managing, but she said she wanted to do this stuff, so I'm going to yell at her until she does it. Anyway, you guys, definitely Potomac's where it's at. Watch Potomac. Meanwhile, Real Housewives of New York is in trouble. They have the lowest ratings they've ever had. Plus, they postponed the reunion. And they were supposed to start filming again in September, a new season. And supposedly, according to what I read, it's not going to start till January now. So that is not a good sign for that franchise in general. Will they bring back some of the OGs like Jill Zarin and just make it, or make 2 shows? I don't know what they're going to do, but has not been a fun or juicy season at all. Okay, you guys, now for my very juicy interview and update of all things legal, Erika Jayne, Tom Girardi related, Kimberly Archie. Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I am back with Kimberly Archie, who is my expert on everything legal and more involving Tom Girardi, now estranged ex-husband of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Erika Jayne. So many lawsuits, so many things. I was just like, just come in and explain it to myself and the people. But before we get into that, you have been reading some of the comments, and I like that you have a sense of humor. Would you like to respond to what people have said about you, Kimberly?
Well, I think probably the thing I've seen the most often is that I remind people of Roseanne Barr, or like someone said, I'm getting Roseanne Barr vibes or something. And I was like, oh, and then some of them would be nice and be like, well, she doesn't look like her really. It's just more like, her no give a shit attitude or whatever.
I have not seen that one, but I agree. First of all, I'm a huge Roseanne fan, and I think she's, one of the funniest people in the world. She inspired me to be a comedian, and now that you say that, I can kind of see it the way you kind of just like drop these funnies without trying to be funny. Like it's just a very natural cadence about you, which I think is why people related and loved Roseanne so much, especially in the early part of her career. So I don't think that's negative. What else did you get?
We want to hear her talk more about like Ponzi schemes or evil lawyers.
Oh,
and
okay,
stuff like that.
good.
So,
okay, we'll get into
so
that.
that kind of
but
thing.
But I thought you said you were compared to another rocker.
Oh, right. Oh, one of my favorite ones. Yeah, that I look like Gene Simmons. So like I'm a chick version of Gene Simmons.
I love it. Yeah,
he's cool.
Cool.
I thought it was funny.
I think your hair.
I meant to reply to the guy and say thanks, but
yeah.
I got distracted.
Very good. Well, my favorite has always been that I look like the mean puppet that rides the tricycle in Saw, which is, a huge movie. I think they had 7 of them. So I always said, if I can be compared to someone who co-starred in 7 horror films, one of the biggest blockbusters ever, then let's have it. So it's always good to just embrace it and say thank you. But I also get a lot of great comments because people are like, thank you for, explaining it. So let's just get into it. Let's just start with last week's episode of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Okay.
Now, the last 2 episodes, Erika now has revealed to the girls She unfortunately had to file for divorce, and she is crying and she's sad about it. And it's just interesting because basically in the years previous, she said Tom is her rock. He supports her. He's so great. But we also did witness him cut her off, be rude. However, in the book, which I read, it was only great things, which was what made me say the book is boring. Like, how is there not one juicy story about how maybe some snobby lawyers' wives ignored her? Nothing in there. She also said he never read it. But now she is crying. She went to meet Kyle, and she wore...
But wait.
Yes, go.
But crying with mascara from,
That's what I'm gonna say.
1930. I mean, there's been waterproof mascara since 1938. So that's before we were all born. So I'm sure she could get waterproof mascara still. I mean...
Well, she cried very hard once when she freaked out on Elaine Davison in Hong Kong, and did not cry then. Camille Grammer brought up, former Housewives of Beverly Hills, that they went swimming in the actual ocean in the Bahamas, and there was no mascara coming there.
But she's a sunglasses queen too. Like, she likes big I do too. She likes big sunglasses. So there's tons. Even there were scenes that somebody posted where she's inside with sunglasses on. So she's sitting in bright sunlight, with non-waterproof mascara. Just sobbing.
The other part of it is, listen, I don't like waterproof mascara. I don't, because I feel like it never comes off. But when I've cried, when anyone's cried, whether you have makeup on or not, it's a natural thing to go like this. If you don't have a tissue, you go like this. If you're talking to your friend and she's bawling, whether cameras or not, you'd either try to find her a tissue or come and literally wipe her tears as the black tears go down. Now, for some of our listeners, some of you may remember this, some of you may not. There's also been a great TV movie made about. But Tammy Faye Baker was a woman who was also caught in a horrible scandal of where they stole money from all their parishioners. And she got on camera. Now, she wore a lot of mascara, and she cried, and the mascara rolled down her face. So Kyle is sitting there, and Kyle's getting sad too. And Kyle's seeing her cry, and she's wiping away her tears a little. Now,
come on, though, that whole scene, and I watched it.
Yeah.
Did she take acting classes? I thought she went to a art high school in Atlanta or whatever.
She says
she needs to get her money back from any classes, because nobody was buying any of that. I mean, that was terrible acting. It was horrible. It was horrible.
Well, as much as I like Kyle's her friend, and I think they planned out this tear fest with the thing we have to stay far apart because of COVID, so we're going to sit outside, but I'm not going to remind you to wipe your face unless Kyle comes out and goes, what was edited out is where I was like, wipe your face.
Yeah, they could have edited it.
But she didn't wipe off her face, which is just not a normal thing to do unless you're planning on, I'm going to do this sympathy thing with the black mascara.
Okay. So Kathy and I talked about this scene.
And remind everybody who Kathy is.
So Kathy's my childhood best friend, and she's Joe's mom. They were in the documentary on Hulu.
Right.
And they're the clients that sued Tom over 2 years ago.
And he owes them the $11 million.
And he still owes them, over $11 million. So Kathy and I, she's been watching it since Erika got on because, they had dealings with them. She thought maybe she'd learn something new.
Yeah.
So we're talking about it, and she said something that really struck me. She's like, she wants people to be sympathetic, but she's not sympathetic.
Right.
Well, that's not going to... Who gave you that narrative? Who's crafting this PR stuff? I mean, come on. We all know she's on a reality show. She's done enough media. Her side has to craft a narrative and lay it out. Who's doing it? I mean, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, who's coming up with this? Because it looks wild. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
I always said I didn't know why she didn't take the narrative of, I was this dumb waitress. I was told I could spend whatever I want. I knew that my husband was getting these big windfalls, but I thought we were spending the 40% of the windfalls. I never knew that anything was being. And yeah, did I sign papers I should have read? You know, who didn't? That's a very common thing. But the fact that she never says anything and just basically says it's a lies, it's shams, wait, the truth will, there are no facts. Do you think though, you know, and also being, you know, with lawyers and stuff, there's been times where, for example, a family gets in a car accident and maybe there's another child that's not their family member that gets killed. And then the other family goes, these were our best friends. And never once did they come over and say they were sorry that they were driving and my child was in the backseat and died. And then you find out later, well, all the attorneys said you're not to contact them at all. But then they're like, we've never been contacted. So do you think part of this might be don't acknowledge the crime at all, whether you believe it, whether you were on the victim side or not? Do you think that might be her instruction?
Well, I'm sure there's an element of, you know, you don't want to say too much. You don't want to incriminate yourself. So I don't think anyone's expecting her to really come out and address any of the issues. I think it's just more like the, you know, not reading the room at all, not appearing. I mean, she only talks about herself and tries to paint herself as a victim. You would probably try to pick something different if you were acknowledging other victims in the first place, because you'd realize how ridiculous you look up next to Joe Gomez, who's been burned 90% of his body and has to get up every day and you know, try to live another day. And you're over here like, oh, my little new house, little small house. And
it's a little dollhouse.
I had to trade in my, you know, whatever she was driving for a Range Rover, you know, and da-da-da-da-da.
Who doesn't love a cute Range Rover?
You know, I'm pretty sure she wasn't gluing on her eyelashes this morning like I was. I'm pretty sure she did, you know, still has people lined up to do her makeup for free so they could get publicity or whatever. So, I mean, come on. Who's buying that her life is so much harder? I mean, you saw in the documentary where they asked her if she didn't have money, what her life would be like. And she's like, you know, smaller, less shoes. But all we've seen in these scenes is like a whole spare room full of shoes.
No, 2 spares.
So
the place is 3 bedrooms. So one is her bedroom, which I put these great photos of myself above the bed. And another one, I didn't know how Mikey did it, but he fit all my shoes in one of these small little cubby rooms. And then another bedroom is my clothes. And, you know, it's not what it was. It's the way I'm living my life. Hey, you know, this is what I expected. I would have never thought it would have ended this way. Now, another thing someone brought up is...
Well, of course she didn't. She was going to hold his hand until she collected the check.
My favorite is... I was going to hold that man's hand.
Vision.
I was going to hold that man's hand until he died. Not until death do us part. No.
Right.
No, you're
remember, there's no
me.
prenup, you know. So that's the happiest ending of all for her.
Right. And so now we see that... Oh, another thing people brought up, and I did too... So they're, you know, Kyle gets the Coveys and she's home and they do FaceTime, which they know is being filmed for the show.
Right.
And as she's talking about all this that's going on and how terrible it is, and they just don't know the truth. And people were mentioning that she was kind of looking off to the side. And some people thought that as a sign of body language when someone's not being truthful. Or could it be that someone actually was in the room kind of holding up notes and kind of being like, you know, say this, don't say that.
Giving cues or signs.
Yeah. It could be that as well.
I mean, it does feel very staged. I mean, and obviously we know there's some staging or scripting to some degree to reality shows. We all know that, or especially the editing is done in a certain way. But it just, the whole season so far has seemed really odd.
Yeah, and it feels like Garcelle is probably the most no bullshit. Like, she does not seem to be as much on the Erika bandwagon. Now, however, they don't have the history that she has with Dorit, Kyle, and Lisa. She's been friends with them longer. But it feels like maybe Sutton and Garcelle are a little bit like, you know, like they'll just go to the camera and Garcelle's like, you know, like I just feel like she says that. She's like, I mean, but come on,
look at
Kyle.
how they treated the other, like, Didn't one of the other housewives like supposedly make out with another woman or with Brandy or whatever? Didn't
Denise.
they just give her like living hell over that?
Yeah, tell the truth.
And then
You gotta own it, Denise. You gotta own it. I don't give a shit if you slept with Brandy or not. Just don't lie about it. But then now, we're right, with Erika, it's like, leave her alone. Divorce is hard. And nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors. Well, nobody knows what went on behind closed doors when behind that door was Brandy and Denise, you know, spending the night in a room together after they drank a lot, which we've all done with our girlfriends. Some women finger each other after and some just go to bed. I don't know. Who cares? But you're right. That was just a nonstop.
And Lisa too.
Yeah.
Because they thought she sold photos or whatever, betrayed them in some way.
Lisa Vanderpump.
Yeah, Lisa Vanderpump.
Yeah.
They were mean to her for what they perceived. Did they ever prove that she did anything wrong?
No, but if she was here, she would say, I mean, come on. I didn't sell photos to Radar Online. I run 5 restaurants. I have 300,000 employees. I mean, come on. So, yeah, she denies that, which I agree. You don't make any money off of
even make sense.
selling photos to Radar Online.
Radar Online
$100.
doesn't really pay. I don't understand, like, who would do that? Like, I don't know. Like, and definitely not someone who didn't need the money.
So
that doesn't make sense.
Okay, so we're watching it now. Now that let's get into the Twitter war that's going on right now as we speak, that is involving this attorney. Let's just talk about the attorney right now, who's kind of at the center of it, Ronald Richards, right? And how, when this all began, he was giving lots of play-by-play stuff on Twitter, which people enjoyed. How did he become now the attorney of record for the bankruptcy?
God only knows. I mean, you know, I don't get it.
But how does that happen?
Well, you know, so there's 2 bankruptcy trustees, one for Girardi Keese and one for Tom individually.
Okay.
It's kind of confusing because Girardi Keese was a sole proprietorship. It really wasn't a partnership. It wasn't a corporation. It was just Tom. And all of Tom's money is commingled for the most part between the 2. It's a mess. So I'm not really sure how, when they went into federal bankruptcy court, you know, when we were on the call originally for the bankruptcy, because I'm one of the creditors that filed originally for the involuntary bankruptcy for Tom, they recommended only one bankruptcy trustee. But no one followed that recommendation, and now we have 2. So you have Rund is the guy for individual Tom Girardi, and then Alyssa Miller is the lady for Girardi Keese, the estate. And so Rund hired one law firm to handle, to be like a special investigator into
finding the assets.
Finding whatever assets, yeah. And of course, people are particularly interested in Erika.
Right.
Because obviously they've been looking into Tom already for some amount of time, and now they're looking at where else has the money gone. And so then the other trustee decides to hire somebody. So she hires Ronald Richards. You know, it's a little salacious.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, I don't understand what's been helpful.
The argument would be, since he has been so involved on social media, and also let's just bring up this just came, I just discovered this on a Instagram account, I Live Bravo. They reminded us that this Ron Richards was the attorney representing Russell Armstrong, who is now the deceased husband of Taylor Armstrong from on the first 3 or 4 seasons of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. They got divorced, and I don't know if the divorce was final or not, but unfortunately he did kill himself. And
really sad story.
Yeah, and I met her personally, and I read her book. And her book really clearly stated the emotional and sadly intense physical abuse with receipts and records that she had at the hand of Russell. So they start doing Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and he had a lot of financial issues. They were being sued. I just watched an episode recently with Taylor in which her attorney who's representing her, whom she's married to, was like, okay, we can settle this, but we need your 4 Hermès handbags or Birkins or something, right, and your wedding ring, diamond, which is probably worth like $100,000. And at that time in this episode, I don't know if Russell had killed himself or not, but she was like, okay, like let's just have this nightmare be over. And in this article that was posted, Richards, the attorney for Russell, says, he spent all of his money to make her happy and to do this perception on the Beverly Hills show and spend money they didn't have to appear to be rich. And because of that, like, he was insecure, and because of the comments, he was insecure. And then they got divorced. And because of that, like, basically blaming her and
the show.
And he also
the show.
And yes, the show. And he also diminished her claims of domestic abuse. And he said, my client said they were both drunk, they were both getting loud, and he said, in my opinion, holding your wife to calm her down is not abuse. Well, if you read what she said, it was way more than doing that, but also that is not something.
I don't think RHOBH is a domestic violence expert.
Right.
And so as an attorney, he knows what a subject matter expert is.
Yeah.
So to sort of leverage a position of being his attorney and then making statements about something that, you're not an expert on, and obviously you're on one side at that time. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's clear you're representing the other person. So you have a duty to that client. I mean, how are you presenting opinions like as if you're impartial and just, making comment?
Yeah.
You're not. You have, it's your narrative for your client.
So, I mean, it's just kind of interesting. He obviously knows a lot. He knows a lot, which I do think can be helpful in finding, in going after Erika Jayne. I mean, he clearly was a fan of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I don't know. I just find it so interesting.
Could add something good, to this. I mean, the bottom line is a lot of people have been harmed by it, by what Tom has done, and by whatever implications Erika may have in what Tom did with his business. If someone could help get justice for any of the victims, like, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But all I've seen is a lot of self-promotion and, and now this, like, crazy war. Like,
okay, so
this
what
is what
we
need is, Erika and one of the lawyers on Twitter playing it out on Twitter. So is that really what we've come to in society, is that we now have to argue our legal claims on social media with whoever asks us? Or, isn't there some decorum? I mean, this went back to, like, what we said on the documentary, about having some decorum when it comes to victims. What about the people who are impacted by this? Is anybody thinking about how they feel about, I mean, this started with Erika doing things on social media that seemed to be very disingenuous and not caring at all about the people affected. So what is this Twitter thing? How is that helping the victims?
Well, and then it just seems like, all of a sudden, now I may have not read every tweet, okay, but what I gathered is...
me too. I put that disclaimer out there. Yeah, I haven't read them all because it's a mess.
Camille put out her thing about my experience with Erika Jayne, and mascara and tears don't seem to match what I saw here. But then he, like, jumped on that and kind of was like, I agree. Then he gets Lisa Vanderpump somehow involved by saying, like, yeah, Lisa, like, we're going to go after Lisa Rinna's thing. Then he posts something about her property, which I'm like, I don't get why that's happening just because Lisa Rinna's showed her support for Erika. Like, now everybody's
well, there's a rumor that Erika invested $5 million into one of Lisa's companies. So people are talking about this online.
Yeah.
So I've tried to see if, there's any real
Evidence
you
to
know,
it.
evidence to it.
Yeah.
I haven't found that yet, but I found, you know, more than one, you know, group of people talking about it.
Yeah.
And that they have the same accountant or something like that. They have a connection in management between Erika and Lisa.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, remember when Erika tweeted a couple weeks ago that there's a snake in her camp or whatever? So they're speculating that, you know, Lisa came forward or something and said, hey, you know, Erika put this $5 million into my company or whatever. So I guess time will tell if that really is, you know, like a fake rumor, fake news.
Yeah.
Or if it's really true or not. But that's what people are saying or trying to implicate. Like, that's why, you know, Ronald Richards could be talking about Lisa Rinna or looking at some of their connections because, you know, this so-called, you know, $5 million is connecting them together in that way.
I also think that it could be that the girls are smart enough to know that with Real Housewives of New York hitting an all-time low in ratings, I think what I read was somewhere in the 700,000, that they're getting their ratings, Beverly Hills. And let's be honest, if they didn't have this Erika Jayne drama, we'd be annoyed and bored by the same COVID 6-person dinner party outside that we are with all these shows. So are they, you know, sticking by and showing her support because they are not going to be pushing for her to be fired? Because even if she has to give everything away and they're going to visit her making lattes at Starbucks next season, that is fucking juicy. Like, I mean, as a viewer, some people are like, she should be fired. And then other people are like, yeah, but if we're really watching real life, this is real life. And it's intriguing and it's interesting and it's tragic and it's awful. We want to see the victims get paid. But if she really gets wiped out, then why would they? Why would they
the genesis of all of this is like, it's a reality show. You know, everybody on there, it's for ratings, it's for selling products, it's for elevating your personal brand or brands. And, you know, isn't that what Tom really saw in it? I mean, David Foster was Tom's friend, you know, so it wouldn't surprise me that they're like, you know, hey, these ladies are on QVC, they're selling makeup, whatever. Imagine how much money you can make as a lawyer if you just put Erika on the show. I mean, how much? They knew that they were overspending, and whatever game he'd been playing for decades, that they had maxed it out and then some. So, you know, I looked up some Google trend data. Tom wasn't really a Google trend as a household name till Housewives. So no one really knew. I mean, people in the legal profession knew who Tom was. He was respected within power people, but he wasn't a household name. Erin Brockovich was a household name. People would say the Erin Brockovich lawyers or whatever, but they wouldn't even say the lawyers' names. They would say her name. That's what was so fascinating about the story, is that a woman really got the name and the accolades, and the power behind it, the men kind of like fell to the wayside. So here Tom is again going, well, let me platform another woman because this shit pays off.
Yeah. And you know, when she first came on, I remember where I heard my friend said, oh, there's this new girl and she's got these #1 hits on the game, you know, dance market, whatever, which now I know you can pay for, you know, especially Billboard dance hits, which means like live music playing like at a DJ club. There's no way to prove if that's even true.
Right.
Whatever. She had that, and she's married to the Erin Brockovich lawyer. So immediately everyone in their head who's seen the movie remembers her being like, "They're boobs, Ed." And we're like, oh, it's Ed. It's that guy, Ed from Bakersfield.
Right, but it's not. It's the other lawyer.
It's the other lawyer. And so definitely people did not know that. And yeah. And so I agree with you on all of that, you know. And then what about when she says to Denise, you know, when Denise is having trouble with Charlie Sheen, and she's like, "You need a lawyer. You always need to speak to a lawyer. Let me call. Hi,
I
baby.
saw that
Hi,
scene.
baby.
Someone sent me that
She
clip.
needs to talk to me or somebody else." And and Denise is like, "Yeah, I'm gonna finish my vacation and wherever they are, Rome or whatever." And
You're talking about family law.
yeah,
Okay, but you know, as a lawyer, technically, I mean, you could do family law, you could do personal injury, you could do probate, whatever. I mean, if you wanted to, I guess seems kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
But technically, in real life, I mean, that's like going to a foot doctor for your heart or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
why are you calling personal injury guy about family law? Now, I could see because of his influence and power.
Yeah.
But I would be more like, can you tell me your best friend that does family law?
Yeah.
I mean, why would you want Tom? Plus, look how old he was. I mean, I used to sit
so
there
let's
and
talk
think like,
about the old stuff. So this on Bravo, I've never bothered to watch this, but it's a gold mine, and it's never before scenes or bonus scenes, and they're like these little short episodes that they throw on before or after the actual episode. And one that it's Mauricio, Kyle's husband, and they're like having a drink in their backyard, and he says, oh, well, you know, then there's someone like Tom, who's, what is he, 83? Sharp as a tack.
Yes.
Just ran into him, you know, totally has all his faculties, this whole thing. And I'm like, oh my God. So I feel like these editors, they are not protecting her, in my opinion, at all. But they also are putting the things that we're latching on and being interested in, that being one of them. And now it has been, the conservatorship is now in place for Tom Girardi as a neurocognitive disorder.
So, okay, look, Tom was in a car accident. It's probably been 3 or 4 years ago now. And it was said that he lost consciousness, you know, in that. You know, and for me, he did seem to have like short-term memory or like weird things that, you know, every time I would meet with him, he would ask me, like, repeat a question that he asked me the last time. And so I was starting to pick up on that. But do I think he has like Alzheimer's and he's incompetent and can't remember or take care of himself or anything like that? And I thought it was interesting in the show where Erika was like, you know, and I'm telling him your hearing's going and your, you know, eyesight, and you're just falling apart and he's not listening. So you left because that doesn't make sense. You said you're going to hold his hand till he died, and now he's losing his faculties and he is getting older. So now you leave because he won't listen.
I think what she was
Isn't
trying
that
to
normal though? Isn't that normal for someone aging, doesn't want to recognize? I mean, you know.
I think she was trying to say, like, he wouldn't listen to me about anything. Even when I was concerned about his own health, going to a doctor, he wanted like nothing to do with me. He was so dismissive of me for so long. And then when this legal stuff did come in, and I'd be like, what is this about? And he'd be like, don't worry about it. I couldn't get the answers, and it was frustrating. And so therefore, finally, when I realized, like, not only is he not talking to me and being rude and not saying I love you and being dismissive, didn't come see me perform in Chicago, and I'm stuck having more. But she did also said we had Morton's every night, and we got to talk every night.
She
but
says a lot of half-truths is what I feel like. Like when she said, when I asked him about the lawsuit, the first legal lender thing, he said it was bullshit and, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He probably did say that. But what's the follow-up? Like, you've been married to him X number of years. Like, she was around when he was divorcing wife number 2 and saw all the fighting amongst them and, you know, saw the way that he behaved. So she knew what he was going to be like. And he has been like this the entire time. He hasn't changed. She knew what she was signing up for from the beginning. So to now be like, oh my God, it took a lot of courage to leave. No, courage is looking in the mirror with burns all over your body and saying, I wear my burns with pride. That's what I call courage. Moving into your smaller house and putting your shoes in your spare rooms is not really courage. I mean, what's courageous about leaving when it's hot in the kitchen? Like, everyone gets out. Big deal.
Also, I was just trying to, oh God, I just lost my train of thought because you were so compelling here.
Because I thought you
I was like, oh my God, like you got it.
No, I'm just so, I've really honed in on that. I just believe when I started looking at the Google trend stuff, because, you know, you look at data. When I started looking at her name and his name and their businesses and then realizing that, you know, in 1999, she was a part of Girardi Financial. You know, like that started at the very beginning from day one. So their little meeting of the minds. I mean, let's talk about marriage because people love, you know, to think it's all romantic and stuff. And then later everyone just fights about sex and money. Marriage is giving half of all your future earnings to your partner. All the stuff you say at the wedding, like, I love you, whoa, we're going to be great and all that. None of that matters when you get divorced anymore. So you can cheat, you can break all the promises, but half of your future earnings goes to the other person. So they are business partners, people.
Yeah.
This is the real.
Yeah.
That's what a marriage is. It has nothing to do with sex or romance or anything else. It's partnering up and giving half of it, unless you make another deal, which they did not. Mm-hmm. So that's California law. So each other. So he's, I mean, I was trying to think of a more eloquent way to say it, but it's kind of pimpish, you know, like, let me put her on the show. My buddy David's wife's on there. We can hook her up. And then, you know, if I think I'm doing well now, imagine being a household name. The whole world's going reality show. You know, I'm kind of in the hole. My Rob and Peter to pay Paul thing isn't working out as hot as it was, you know. And if I put my wife on the show, maybe she can finally pay for her own crap.
Right. Totally.
You know, and bump me up. I mean, if he is who he is without the notoriety of a reality show that has some really good ratings, especially when they got on.
Yeah.
You know, my daughters told me that, like, Housewives is like, you know, football for, you know, how men are about football.
Yeah.
That's how, you know, women and gays are about Housewives.
Yes.
And
totally.
I was like, okay. I didn't know, but that makes sense to me now.
Definitely, because you have your favorites. You know, you have opinions of whether they should stay on, be traded, go away.
Yeah, you have your teams.
Yeah.
You picked
First
your teams
string,
from the
second string,
different, exactly.
Friend of is a second
who
string.
Who would be your real friends
like
in real life, who you would have their back.
This
all of
quarterback
that.
is aging.
Yeah.
I don't know how many more seasons they can do, but they're a housewife. Okay, well, I remember what I was going to say. So we see previews for this week or coming up, where she drops the bomb on the women who are supposedly shocked that he did cheat and there were other women. Now, I remember when all this was coming out and she posted those old, like, Nokia phone archaic texts from
He still has that phone, though.
That's his phone, right?
Yeah, so that could have been from yesterday or whatever. But
Which I think that's the thing. We
funny.
don't know, is it from 15
Right.
years ago? Was it from last week? Were you hanging on this for sympathy? And it's with this female judge who then her people came after Erika saying remove it because
she
this
put
woman,
like her phone number and stuff out too,
and that
like
she's married and that
yikes.
she was getting Tom was paying for her plastic surgery, but now she's with somebody in a committed relationship, no longer with Tom, and was like, yeah, there was something going on, but like I don't appreciate that.
But there was another lady, and I'll be like Danielle. You know, I use lady loosely, right?
Danielle, stop. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't even remember her last name, but that was a great line.
Yeah.
You know, there was somebody everyone knew about. She's been in. I think that's who he was having dinner with recently when someone caught him in Pasadena having
woman,
dinner.
Not the judge. A different
Not
woman.
the judge, right. There
Yeah.
was a lady that everyone kind of knew about, and she went with Tom everywhere after Erika was on the show, you know, just sort of as, you know.
Companion,
yeah, like fill-in for
Yeah.
Erika. Like, and she was like blonde and whatever, and sort of a different sort of version of Erika. We're all
Yeah.
like, okay, whatever. No biggie. So I don't understand how in any way she could introduce the idea that they had this traditional
Right.
monogamous husband and wife romantic relationship when it's
Well,
obviously
I think,
never the case.
I think, now I'm going to speak in her defense just to have both sides.
Sure.
You did have this weird fucking marriage that was transactional, as we said before. You had your thing. Maybe in the beginning it was a little more.
And it doesn't mean they didn't have love for each other.
Yeah, maybe in the beginning it was a little more love and romantic. Then she got her thing. She knew he cheated. She was happy not to go because she said, I used to go to all these places, Germany and everything with him. Now I don't because I've got the Erika Jayne show. So she was kind of okay. And I remember someone saying, I know the woman. My friend does the woman's hair. This is like 6 years ago. That's Tom's companion and Erika knows about her, and it's like very known, and like she's happy not to go to Germany and all these places again. She'd rather go to Germany in her, and put talcum in between her thighs so she could put on a rubber dress with her gays there and travel and all that stuff and do her dramatic things, screaming at Elaine about, you don't know what I go through every night. You don't know. So that's what she would rather do. But now it's like anybody that's kind of, in her defense, anyone that's hid the fact you presented your perfect marriage, okay? And a lot of people not on TV do that.
Sure.
Then when the shit hits the fan, then it's like fucking diarrhea. And you're like,
no,
treated me like shit, said these mean things. I remember this awful incident when he said, you can have her. I remember this when he told me, I don't love you or no love you back. And I remember, and now, since I'm spilling it on the show, is when we, at the same time that she's spilling on the show that he's having an affair, is I believe when we saw this explosive Instagram, Pinterest collage of these old text messages, or not that old, with this judge talking about how they are going to get together, have sex, and he's going to pay for her plastic surgery. It was like in her little arsenal to be like, boo-hoo, he was not a good man. Don't you feel bad for me? Aren't you happy for me to finally have my own? Because, I was this girl that had everything paid for me, but it was, in the end, not worth it. But still, no mention of the victims.
Or even just the idea of not trying to present yourself as a victim, just as that you could say this was a horrible thing. I mean, you're right. Most people say glowing things about the person they're with, and then when they're not together,
then you
especially to your friends, like, oh God, this happened, this was the red flags, this is the demise, this is what we did. You rehash it all or whatever. But you're talking about in a more like regular, normal circumstance. You're playing it out on a reality show, and your husband is in a really hot seat right now for some things that, these are not allegations, meaning that it was admitted that he didn't have any more money. You saw it in the documentary. And it's known that he owes the Gomez's X number of dollars. He owes the plane crash victims from the Chicago case X number of dollars. Those cases are proven. So this is really, really serious.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why it's not taken more seriously. What the victims have gone through, what seems to be, just a 40-year bloodbath of, victims from here to eternity. So you would think like that part would create an air about her of something, to have some amount of sympathy. Like Kathy said, if you want sympathy, you got to give sympathy. And so you can't be the ice queen and be like, I can take it. But then you really can't because, you're on Twitter having a fit for no, it's not doing her any good. It's not doing the victims any good. It's not going to change the facts per se, her being online, arguing with people or, showing photos with no clothes on or whatever and saying, she said some crazy stuff this weekend.
Oh, yeah. She was answering questions. And I think one of the questions was like, are you gay? And then she's like, yeah, I like them big, hard dicks or whatever, but hey, that again is with her persona. And if she's going to work after this, it's like she's got to still.
But doesn't that tweet alone tell us, like, Tom's like 5'6" or whatever?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And he's all like, doesn't that really just like kind of screw herself with her own like narrative again? Like, here you go again. Like, yeah, we know. We know that wasn't the big hard dick that you were. Come on.
Okay, let's talk about all the things that have happened the last couple weeks. So there's one. How many lawsuits are against her right now in which they're looking for the assets? And
so there's really one lawsuit. There's the bankruptcy, and in the bankruptcy are all these ongoing filings.
Okay.
So I think what's sort of interesting about seeing something in your real life play out in the news is to like see a filing and be like, yeah, we've known that for months. It
Yeah.
really is technically already going to happen. Maybe someone decided to file it because they needed something specific that was in there to be said to the courts or whatever.
Right.
But now here are the headlines and everyone talking about it and whatever. So, Erika being Tom's, spouse and being on some of these companies and having money transferred to her companies and signing joint tax returns. I mean, she's been involved in this from day one. She wasn't named in the RHOBH case specifically because, nobody was trying to put, the victims in the spotlight and have their whole lives be paraded out because she's on TV. And so she's automatically in the lawsuit, from the beginning as a spouse.
Okay. And then what was it? Now, what do you think about her being seen on the 2 private jets recently?
I don't know. That's like a tough one because
I think it's a tough one because she could
she
be a
could
guest.
just know somebody and got on their plane
Yeah,
and now
I
they're like
agree.
hunting down their tail number and all that.
Yeah.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
That, somebody should be looking into, was there a transaction that paid for that jet from like EJ Global or something like
Right,
that?
yes.
That was money that was loaned to her from Tom that could have been victims. Okay, that makes sense. But if somebody knows a lot of people and has been running around in those circles, you're going to have friends that also have access to that, and you're just jumping on a flight. I mean, I highly doubt she bought a plane. So
But she did say a lot of people dropped her. So I don't know what friends are like dying to host her. But
didn't Michael Rappaport like put out a video last night and be like, I love Erika Jayne and she's the best and she's been so classy about all of this.
Did he really
He's
say
such
that
a jerk.
as a joke or as
No, he's dead serious. He loves her. He was like pouring his heart out. He's such a, oh my God.
Like, why can't we just have one thing be Bravo? Like, why do we have to have Michael Rappaport be part of it? Now, I had him on my show and I thought he was pretty funny talking about Bethany
He trolled
Frankel,
me on
but
Twitter
like,
once about that I was some kind of makeup queen. Something I can't remember
He
exactly.
wasn't nice
I didn't
to
really
you?
care. Yeah,
All
he
right.
was, but I don't.
well,
I mean, it's Twitter.
Then let them
Twitter's
be
like a
let them
bar.
be together. Who cares? Okay, so all these things are happening now. Do you think though possibly had COVID not happened and we didn't have like a delay of like basically a year of backlogged lawsuits and stuff, do you think there's any chance that some of his other lawsuits would have been settled and that money would have come in and he would have been able to continue to? There's no way.
No, because what people don't realize is that, he could no longer, because of the RHOBH case, he could no longer borrow from the legal lending companies. So that's why he wasn't able to, he didn't have enough money to rob. He was running out of, robbing himself to pay the next guy. So he was having to borrow from these legal lenders. And he could he admitted that he could no longer borrow from these legal lenders anymore. So that was in September 2020. He said, because of you guys filing this in January, this was June 2019 when their case was filed. So by the time he's, doing his debtor's exam or deposition in their case, he's admitting that he cannot borrow any more money. So that's where everything blew up because he didn't have money to keep the lid on the next problem, which was Chicago. And when, Chicago happened, there was no going backwards. But the straw that broke the camel's back was the RHOBH case and him not being able to borrow anymore. And we really haven't heard about the legal
next
lending.
$1 million
That's the real, to me, that would be the alleged Ponzi scheme. Not robbing Peter to pay Paul in your own business, but actually a legal, lending company. If you're like, plaintiff lawyers borrow primarily from legal lending companies because of the tax benefits of, borrowing for your expenses or your cases rather than just putting out all of your money for the expenses, because it's not, you get the money back 90% of the time in personal injury cases. So you're not getting a write-off for that. So it's better to borrow the money in a tax sense. But if you're overspending and now you can't pay back these high interest loans, then is it really a tax benefit? And that's what it seems like was a big part of Tom's problem, is that he had all these, loans. We've seen all the lawsuits from the legal lenders. He had tons of loans. I mean, these are like payday loans. It'd be like us, taking a loan out on our car, on the pink slip to our car at 20%. Like, who does that when you're desperate?
Yeah.
But if it's a tax benefit, initially it seems like a good idea. So it was like a good idea. His own good idea went wrong, really, in the end.
So, okay, before we wrap up, you said you wanted to clear one other thing.
Yeah.
That was a Twitter thing.
So I brought you a copy of my book, Brain Damaged. This was a project done by our group, Faces of CTE. And one of the myths that I saw on the internet after the documentary was people saw Tom's name in the book, and they were saying that Tom paid for the book. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty interesting. That, they drew those conclusions. But I wanted to clear it up because this was done by a group of families that all lost a loved one to CTE. So it was a group project that was done by everyone. And so all the expenses for the cost of the book, like the editing and the printing and all that, was paid for by the families. Mm-hmm. Tom's name's in the book in one of the sections. We didn't take it out at print time, because it was before the Gomez's sued, so we didn't want to trip anybody up, or, I was afraid, like, if he looked at the book, he wasn't going to read it. We know he doesn't read, because he didn't read Erika's book. So I wasn't worried about him reading the whole thing, but, like, if there was a list of people saying they're great, and we called them champions, for, children or whatever. Yeah. So if he wasn't listed in there with the champions, he might have noticed that.
Yeah.
So we didn't take his name out. And, this is going to be one of those things that's a part of the story. Are the things that he did that created good in the world, will those still count? How do we feel about that? How do you deal with, now that we know what we know about what he did, does that mean any of the good that was done doesn't count anymore? I don't know.
And that's kind of an interesting, larger question about a lot of people.
Yeah.
When it comes to a Weinstein movie that really touched your heart. Do you
Woody
feel differently
Allen.
about it now? Woody Allen, Michael Jackson, R. Kelly, songs that inspired you, that, were written by him, or even they did give to a charity, or they did do something sweet for an individual. They did pay for someone's cancer treatment. That's a third cousin, So, and I think that you can still do that. I think you can still say these things were good. But yeah, is the whole person horrible? Because I don't know. I don't think you even have to make a decision about it. I mean, it is what it is. People are complicated people, and they do good things and they do bad things, and but in the good things that he's done, they were all to a benefit of himself.
Yeah.
If he was fighting for somebody, I mean, maybe I don't know, if I don't know that he did any pro bono cases, but there's people who go do pro bono cases to try to get someone off death row, and someone could still argue, well, they're doing that for publicity.
Right.
It's always going to be an argument when, unless you give money anonymously to a charity nobody
knows,
and
right.
Or a charity that I also think that all of a sudden when you're like, I'm the face of this disease because now I have it, or now my child has
right.
it. I go, why doesn't anybody ever stand up for a disease that has no connection to them?
Right.
It's just a sad disease. And they're like, it's just sad. But
that's what's weird about the book. So I took a picture of, this is the last time I ever met with him either.
Yeah.
So this was like a month before Kathy's case was filed. So I took a picture of him with the book because I asked him if he would, donate his brain to science, because I knew what was coming. And, we had done the NFL case. My son's brain was donated. I had worked on this project for years to work with brain banks to broaden, research on brain health. And so, him knowing one of our clients, Isaiah Robertson, who was a 6-time Pro Bowler for the Rams, and they knew him from the time he played for the Rams in the 70s until his death. He also had CTE, and this book is dedicated to him. So I was saying to Tom, because in my mind I'm thinking, when all this goes down, I mean, aren't we going to want to look at the brain? And now he claims he has Alzheimer's. The only way to confirm that is via brain autopsy. You can't clinically really diagnose Alzheimer's. It's like CTE, which is what my son had. You have to have a brain autopsy. So, I'm hoping still that Robert, his brother, will make good on, that one promise and have
And
his
so
brain looked at.
when you asked him, he said yes?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's not going to say no to my face.
I'm just wondering.
I mean, I don't know if he'll do it.
Well,
or maybe he won't remember it. He has Alzheimer's,
here's the
right?
book.
Or allegedly.
Here's the book, Tom. And can you just promise to give me your brain when this is all said
Hey,
and done?
look, we're on a mission. We're moms on a mission, remember? And in my mind, just, I know what's probably coming down the pike. And I'm thinking, if any brain would be interesting, it would be interesting to look at this person who masterminded this thing for 4 decades. I mean, that's an interesting brain to look at for science. What scientist wouldn't want to look at it? I know I would.
Well, we're going to keep following all of this. And Erika is going to, keep crying and telling us, it's expensive to be me. I realize I haven't done that in a while, and you guys have been asking for it.
And what has she really missed out on? She's still on Housewives. That's still her gig to promote herself.
And I have to say, how much more would you rather be in an adorable street on West Hollywood with a pool, 3 bedrooms, and no annoying Tom barking at you with his styrofoam coffee cup, or so you could go to your chapel and pray to your Buddha, Jesus Christ, and I don't know what, Quran? I mean, what the hell was that? It was like, I think I'd much rather be in West Hollywood in my cute place and get to be on the show and have no obligations to him. Obviously, she's going through the stress of all of this. But as far as like a location goes, and then apparently the person who is the owner of that house that she's renting is somewhat of a personal connection to Tom. And that person also, I guess, is a lawyer, went to Loyola Law School. I don't really think
half
that.
the lawyers in LA went to the
Right.
same law
So
school.
I don't.
So that's
to
a
me-
tough one. I
to
think
me, I don't really
draw
care
a
about
straight
that.
line.
And if you needed to find a place and it happens
go to
to
a
be,
friend.
yeah, I would say, does anybody know anybody that has a house I can rent? Okay, yeah, here to get in there quick. I don't. So people were trying to say that somehow Tom, that the divorce is fake. I do not think the divorce is fake.
So I forgot I was going to tell you this
Yeah.
part. In the divorce, she puts for their separation date to be decided. And I thought that was interesting that she didn't pick a date, because the date of separation can have an impact on what is community property from that date going forward. So didn't she say on the show that she drove him to work at 9 a.m., which
Yes.
I do not believe she was up that early. But anyway,
Yeah.
she drove him to work and dropped him off, and then she
Bye,
showed,
baby.
and she told him how much, that he was the love of her life or whatever, and he shrugged her off. And then she drove off into the sunset and loaded up her U-Haul vans. I mean, her giant trucks for all of her stuff, right? And she said she left.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be the day
day.
of separation?
Yeah.
So how come she didn't know?
I think because you're saying, because she's trying to say, actually.
Maybe she's, maybe you're saying, well, maybe we should decide this date at a later time. I mean, but maybe you should have announced on the show what the date was then if you weren't going to decide. I don't know.
Maybe,
I just think it's interesting. We should be watching that.
Well, I wonder.
See what they eventually say is the date.
Okay, so
of
this is what I
separation.
think.
So keep an eye on
This
that.
is what I would do if I was her while I'm on the show. I felt like we were no longer a couple when I left for Chicago. I left for Chicago. I was in New York City, and that man never called me again until I came home because of COVID. And then we were like 2 ships passing in the night, in the day, in the afternoon, because we were together having Morton's every day. I said earlier that we ate, but we didn't. I ate in the chapel. He ate out of a styrofoam cup. Okay, now it's, March 8th, 2020. Would that even make a difference at this point? Because the lawsuits and all that stuff were there. So,
well, yeah, and the issues are going to be, their money being together and being, legally.
the $20 million loan.
I think they're saying 25 now is the new number that we're hearing.
That went into the EG Global.
Yeah, over the years or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard there's one check for, 25 mil that was just handed over to Erika on a silver platter. I think I haven't heard that. But the new number of the overall of what they're saying is 25 million.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of money, even over, 20 years. And
I mean, like in the end, will like every hair and makeup person be deposed to say how much did you make when you went to?
I mean, I don't think so. And I mean,
that'd probably be pretty easy to simple to prove. I don't know why we need those people
I think it's really interesting that, the recent case about the lottery case where.
What's the lottery case?
So there was Tom and David Lira represented a couple who had won $5 million in the lottery, and their daughter had gone on the show, and it was the dad's ticket.
Gone on what show?
There was some like California lottery show where like if you won a $1,000 ticket or something, then you could go on the show.
Okay, so the daughter
and so the dad has told the daughter to go on or whatever. So there's a book about it.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, no, explain. I don't know this. I don't know the story. So go.
So so the dad has the daughter go on the show, and the daughter wins $5 million, but doesn't split it with the parents. She keeps it all. And she was an actress or something or whatever.
Okay.
So Tom sues the daughter to get the parents half of the lottery money back.
Okay.
So when they do, they get their lawyer fees, their 40% from the lottery commission in annual payments. So Tom assigned it to Erika and to Jacqueline, David's wife, which is Tom's daughter. So there are these payments that they've been getting over the years. So recently, the bankruptcy trustee intervened Erika's payment, but not Tom's daughter. So I'm confused about that. And maybe that'll get cleared up later. But right now, they've mentioned that they stopped, Erika's payment. They came in like June 9th or something like that. That's what
so. How many years was she getting money from the lottery?
20 years.
And
this is what's interesting.
How much? Like a 1 year payment?
It was different amounts. But
like,
it was $1 million of legal fees or whatever over 20 years.
Okay.
Split up amongst, folks. But what was interesting is that when you get money from the lottery commission, you don't pay any state taxes on lottery commission money. So it's just weird. Like, so these are lawyer fees, and then they were given to the wives, and then they came from the lottery commission. I get it, because that's where the money's coming from. But it's just like, does anybody wonder? Because if you get money from the lottery commission, they'll take your federal taxes out. But because it's the state of California that owns the lottery, you don't pay state taxes on lottery winnings. But you would have paid state taxes on lawyer fees. It's all very weird.
Oh, another just convoluted thing. Yeah.
So another as the world turns kind of like scenario with the whole Girardi thing. So now we know, and there were rumors about that there was this lottery case, or that there were annuities that were put in Erika's name. And at some point, all this stuff is going to come out. It's going to come out.
Yeah.
May not know today or a year, or whatever, but at some point, these things are going to come out, and they'll have to be dealt with. And in the meantime, everything that is said on Twitter or said on the show is going to be looked at. Do these things line up or match up?
Yeah. Well, Kimberly, so great seeing you. Your blowout looks great. I'm glad you got up early and did it. And
thank you, Javier.
Yes. And tell everybody where they can follow you if they have questions for you or anything.
So you can find me on Twitter at Kimberly Archie, just my regular name, Archie, like the royal baby, or Cheer Safety on Instagram, which I'm not very good at, but Twitter's more fun, probably.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. Make sure to follow her, and make sure you go to heathermcdonald.net for my new Live, Laugh, Scoop tour. That's right, you guys. I am doing a play on that amazing sign that we all love. Seriously, though, I'm so excited for these shows. San Francisco, which has been postponed twice, is up and running, and there are still tickets available. I've got 2 shows Friday, August 6th, 2 shows Saturday, and I believe there's still some VIP available. So please get your tickets at Cobb's. That is where I'm going to be, at Cobb's in San Francisco. Then I'm going to Seattle. Justin Martindale will be with me at the Triple Door Theater, and that is September 10th and 11th. All the rest of the dates are available at heathermcdonald.net. Get your tickets now. They are selling fast, and, I don't know what we're going to do when we sell out. I just don't want to hear you cry about it. But get the tickets, and there are definitely seats available right now in San Francisco. So get them soon. Today, now. Love you.